Getting everyone set up, the next thing that I'll typically do at the start of a Zoom prayer call is just take a minute or two just to orientate everyone and help them understand how the call works, especially if there's new people on the call. I just want to remind them or let them know how we run a call. And so some of the things that I'll talk about are firstly that we mute when we're not talking or praying. And making sure that people know how to do that, and telling them that we also, at least in most cases, we don't use video. In some cases we can, depending on bandwidth, but if we're not using video, let people know that they need to have their video off. Something that can be helpful is just to let them know ahead of time that if someone doesn't mute or if somebody doesn't have their video off, I might speak up and tell them, and that's not a problem. It's part of a prayer call. Is sometimes people forget, and that they'll either be told or maybe get a private message that says, hey, you need to mute your mic. And that just helps people not feel ashamed or feel bad because they don't know how to mute or they forgot to mute. Or the opposite, that they might forget to unmute when they're praying. And sometimes as the prayer leader, we need to speak up and say, hey, you forgot to unmute. Something else that we'll explain is how a prayer order works, just because most people aren't used to that, or how we're going to be praying today. If it's a smaller group, sometimes we'll just let people pray kind of organically like you would in a normal prayer meeting. But because once you get above 3 or 4 people, it can be hard for people to know when somebody's done praying or when they should pray. And some people also, because there aren't the nonverbal cues of when someone's finished, some people actually don't know when they can start praying. And so having an order just helps make sure that everybody prays. It doesn't mean that people can't pray more than that, but it just gives somewhat of an order to the prayer call. And so I'll just explain to people that I'm going to put an order in the chat box, and we're just going to pray in the order of the names in that chat box. And then, I'll say when to start, I'll explain what we're going to pray about, and then we'll just pray through it. I also encourage people to use the chat box because we are muted. Sometimes we want to express that we agree or say an amen to something, or maybe post a verse or something, to encourage people that it's a great thing actually when somebody's praying and they agree to just type an amen, or to say, I agree, whatever they feel like doing. Or if somebody wants to jump in, let's say that somebody's praying about a specific thing within the broader issue that person, the second person wants to also pray about, just to say, can I pray next? And that way, they can skip the order that's been put in order to pray also. And so it's just encouraging people that even though it is a little bit different, that it actually, once people get used to praying on a Zoom prayer call, it actually can be quite similar. It's just different. One last thing is to make sure to just let everyone know that when you're done praying, to please say amen. Some people, it's just not what they normally do in prayer, but because we're on a Zoom Skype call and we can't see each other, it's hard to actually know when somebody's finished praying, or if they're one of those people who pauses in the middle of their prayer. And so having a clear stop or a clear end when someone says amen, it's very easy for the next person to know when to start praying. If you'd like to learn more about leading Zoom prayer times, check the description, and we're going to post a link to a document that we've written that has more tips and ideas for leading Zoom prayer.